911. What are you?
Whoa, 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 everybody. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. It's real Vile time, babies. That's right. We're going to get vile and it's going to get real. Of course, you know me. I'm the G to the R to the... let me try that again. The G to the E to the R to the M. The T stands for the, but you already knew that. And we're about to rip it up in a modern way. So you know it's got to be Mr. Germ T. Ripper. And of course, I have my lovely co-host, as always, the Prime Minister, the Sinister, Ruthless Chris. Say hello to the people in real Vile land.
How you doing, slime balls and psychopaths?
Slime balls and psychopaths. I hope you're doing well. And of course, we've got the Tower of the Hour, the Princess of Power, Miss Kelly the Killer Miller. What's up, baby?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good.
Hey, how you doing? She's good. All right. Well, what have you guys been up to lately?
I went and seen Psycho at the drive-in. That was pretty cool. Like we mentioned before, they do the the free movie nights every Wednesday at the local drive-in we have around here, and they just had Psycho. Kind of want to go this week. This week will be the Breakfast Club, but I think the week after that is the Krampus. Yeah. So.
Will it still be July? Yeah, Christmas in July.
Yeah, probably.
I love that.
But then the week after that, they're doing a double feature of Back to the Future, and that one I definitely want to go to.
Sweet. Sounds like a good time. Always a good time at the drive-in. Mm-hmm. How about you, Mr. Ruthless Chris? What you been up to, baby doll?
It's been busy as hell getting this show ready to go. Do have a fun little announcement. We're going to have a nice little midnight movie marathon at King of the Kill the first night, Friday night. It is being produced or sponsored by and curated by Severn Films, with the main attraction being The Masked Mutilator, which is a 90s film made by wrestlers and has wrestlers in it. It's a splatter film. It's a lot of fun. So we got that to look forward to. And they donated some gift boxes to raffle off. So there's going to be some DVDs and posters and what have you, courtesy of Severn Films. So that's pretty fucking exciting.
That's pretty awesome.
Involved. Yeah. Aside from that, did some movie watching this week. Found out, I came to the conclusion, I've been single for a while. The worst thing about being single as a single man living alone is when you have to put a fitted sheet on your bed. I'm winded right now because I had to struggle to put a fitted sheet on my bed. I'm not a small man. I'm very large. And every time I got one corner on, the other corner would pop. So I literally I'm coming into this winded because of a fitted sheet. So that's what's going on in my life. That's a little insight into what I got going on. How about you, Jerm?
Fair enough. Oh, me and myself and I, a wonderful time as always, just doing my thing, helping others out, doing the addiction counseling thing as I do. Besides that, like everybody else, it's just wrestling and horror movies and movies and more wrestling. That's what we do, right? But let's get this terror train on the tracks and chugging along and start talking about some movies. Killer Kelly, let's start off with you. What you been watching? Oh, we didn't even talk about our big spoiler movie.
Oh, shit. Yeah,
our big spoiler movie for tonight. Our main movie that we're going to be talking about tonight is the 2018 very diversive film. It is Lars von Trier's The House That Jack Built. Holy guacamole. I love this movie. It's my favorite film by this very artistic, bleak filmmaker. And I can't wait to talk about it. But in the meantime, let's get back to talking about a few other films. Gotta throw the ball back at you, Killer Kelly. What you been watching, baby?
The first one I watched, well, it's not the first one I watched, but the first one I'm going to talk about. This one is a new one that's on Netflix. I don't know. I seen it pop up in a couple horror groups that I'm on Facebook, and it kept popping up like suggested movies. This is Tin and Tina. It's 2023. It's a Spanish movie, like Spain Spanish. This was a weird one. It follows this lady, Lola, and her husband. They're trying to have a baby, and then she loses the baby. Something happens to her where she can't have children. She's supposed to not be able to have children. So they decide to go adopt. The place that they go to adopt is like super religious. I don't know. What do they call them? Places where nunnery, convent. Yes. Nunneries. But, yeah, they go to,
I think they're both the same thing. I think nunnery is actually a word too.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I wasn't wrong. But, but anyway, they go to adopt these kids from there, and like they're crazy talented at playing the organ. And when she comes down to meet them, they're like super creepy looking. They look like they came from Village of the Damned, like albino kids with the white hair. And they're all, not only that, they're insanely religious. Like everything they do is just like, yes, Father, this is to please God, but she really wants to adopt them. So she adopts these two creepy ass kids. And like, she's kind of like an atheist. She doesn't realize how fucking like crazy they are. Like at one point there's like a dog murder scene because they were trying to cleanse the dog. But then they want it to like, they're like, oh, the dog didn't come back to life. Like, did we do it right? And then to like punish themselves, like they're doing all this shit, to like hurt themselves. Like, no, we've got to do this because we didn't please God, and they're like crazy ass kids. Well, she ends up getting pregnant, and then like the whole rest of the movie kind of turns into like, worried about, are they going to hurt the baby? I don't know. It was a decent movie. I'd give it a 3. It kind of had like a feel of, well, they looked like kids from Village of the Damned, but it kind of felt like, it just had like the same, like nothing to do with the story or anything, but the same feeling of like Rosemary's Baby in some areas, like the eeriness of that movie. It reminded me of a mix of a few movies that I can't put my finger on, but it was decent. I give it a 3.5. If you like creepy kid movies, it is Spanish, but it's dubbed. It's not subtitled. If you're one of the people that don't like subtitles, I don't mind them. Got to be in the mood. But, yeah. You guys heard of this
one?
And
this one's called Tim and Tina?
Tin.
Like
Rin Tin Tin, yeah. Tin right. And Tina.
Tin and Tina on Netflix, giving it 3.5 stars from Killer Kelly. Ruthless Chris, have you seen or heard about this one?
I have not. Ever since Netflix has updated their policy, I have not had access to Netflix because I was using my brother's account, and they've updated to where you can't share anymore. And I'm not sure I want to pay for Netflix because out of all the streaming services I have, it's the one I use the absolute least. Their horror section sucks.
Yeah, I was thinking about canceling too. I think you should leave though. And like, there's a couple, and Seinfeld is on there, so there's like 2 main things. I'm like, fuck, I can't cancel it. I fall asleep to Seinfeld.
Isn't that the thing though? Like with streaming services, they'll have like 1 or 2 things where you're like, nobody else has them, and you're like, I can't get rid of it because I want to watch that 1 or 2 thing.
Right.
Every once in a while, they'll throw on a movie or something else that you'll check out, but it's those 1 or 2 things that I'm like,
I know. And like the 2 shows that I can watch anytime, like it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know what to put on, throw this on, even though I've seen it a million fucking times, but. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Ruthless Chris, what have you been watching, baby?
I've had a week. I've actually enjoyed every movie I've watched this week too. So, but they've been 2 cheese boats and 1 decent. First one to talk about is Little Corey Gory, 1993 by Bill Morrone. This one is definitely a product of its time. It's really hard to describe the tone of this movie because the tone's really what makes it interesting. It has almost like they're trying to go for the serial mom tone, but obviously they don't have the chops or the filmmaking ability or the money to do that. What you have is a kid named Corey. He lives with his stepmother and his brother-in-law or stepbrother. Apparently, the dad died in an accident. Now the stepmother's taking care of him, but they just torture the shit out of this kid and use him as a like a butler, like a slave. And it's like the neighbors do not give a shit about like beating or abusing kids in this world. Like when they first move in, the older brother hides the TV remote from the mom, who's like this alcoholic who just watches TV all day, and they blame the kid. So they hang him by a belt from the drapes, and the neighbors come over to give him brownies and like welcome to the neighborhood. And they're like, "Here you go," and they're like, "Yeah, thanks, fuck you." And then they look over and see the kid's literally hanging with his face all busted open. They're like, "Ah, what's up with that?" Like, don't worry about it. Like, all right, we won't. And they like, go about their business. But so basically, the kid's heavily abused. This keeps going on and on. Kid has a sweet spot for this girl. He ends up getting some money put together, and he's going to take her to see Ozzy Osbourne. The stepbrother ends up stealing the tickets, banging the girl, what have you. Kind of sends his kid into a spiral. He ties his mom to a couch for days on end. Just like every once in a while, gives her some food. Won't give her beer. That's all she asks for is beer. And then like lets her hold the remote so she can watch what she wants. And then he proceeds through a bunch of follies to kill a bunch of people. There's some cool effects in this thing. It's real gory. It's real tongue in cheek. When I looked it up on IMDb, there was a really strange review that was from the director, and he like kind of like was like spilling the beans and like behind the scenes, and he's like, like we ran out of money halfway through this thing. No one got paid. It was like a labor of love, and I guess originally when they did have money, Divine was supposed to play the mother, and it was right before Divine passed. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm going by what the director wrote up in the review, but apparently Divine was supposed to be Divine ended up passing, so the people that were investing took their money back because that was supposed to be. And I can see how the character was written for someone like Divine, like it had like a 50s style and look, and like build like the same build as Divine and all that. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely dog shit. Like go into it like if you got Serial Mom from Wish, and like even Wish was like ooh, but it's still entertained in its own like it's ineptitude makes it entertaining, and it actually has a really crazy twist ending that you don't see coming. So for all of that, I actually give it a 3. I actually really enjoyed it. I watched it on Tubi, 1993. Little Corey Gory.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw when you originally were watching this. It sounded like something I'd like to check out. I like all the things that you said about it, and definitely something up my alley. How about you, Killer Kelly? Have you heard about this movie at all?
Nope. Other than Chris mentioning it in the other day. So, no, I have not heard of it.
All right. Well, Little Corey Gory, 3 stars on Tubi. Check it out. It's free, and if you you get sick of it after 10 minutes, just change the channel. It's free. Oh, but in the meantime, we're going to keep this train rolling. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. And I'm going to talk about the 1981 supernatural fantasy mystery horror film, The Survivor. I picked this one up as a blind buy from Severin Films because they posted that it was in their clearance section. I think it was $8, and I'm a sucker for anything. Hey, it's Severin and it's $8. I can't say no. But anyways, with this movie, it's about a pilot being the sole survivor from a plane crash, and he works with a psychic and a priest to unmask the culprit behind the incident to pacify the vengeful souls of the victims. There's a lot going on in this movie, and it gets a little convoluted, a little hard to follow at times. It's like, okay, they're vengeful? Sure, but who are they vengeful against? The guy that blew up the plane is dead as well. But it's definitely an interesting watch because it is Australian, and I'm a sucker for anything Australian. And it's directed by David Hemmings, who he's done a lot of work with like horror and sci-fi and fantasy, Barbarella, Gladiator. He's known for, really interesting films. But then again, the cast is also amazing. Like the lead actor who plays the pilot that survived the crash, Robert Powell, he's also known for everything like really strong cult films like Harlequin, he played Jesus in Jesus of Nazareth. I mean, the cast is amazing. It is a bizarre movie, but it's really got a unique artistic vision to it. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but if you got $8 and you're into physical media, I would definitely, if they've got any copies left, go and order it from Severin. It's worth the $8. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But that's The Survivor from 1981, and I give it 3 stars. Have either of you heard of or seen The Survivor?
No, I have not. I don't think so.
I have not as well.
All right. Well, if any of you out there in Real Vile Land want to check it out, go buy yourself a copy. In the meantime, Killer Kelly, what you got for us next, baby doll?
The next one I watched is my favorite movie that I watched this week. This one is instantly like 4.5, 5 stars for me. This one is Two Witches, 2021. Excuse me. Right now, it was only like $3.50 on Prime, the same price to rent as it is to buy. So I just bought it. But I honestly want to buy a hard copy of this. I fucking loved this movie. It's directed, and he's one of the writers, Pierre Sigouridis. He's got like this and a short, but like based on this, I love this movie. This kind of starts out. Obviously, there's 2 witches and they've got a baby and they're about to do something terrible to it, so it instantly shows you that there's 2 witches, and then it cuts to this lady, Sarah, and her husband. They're eating dinner in a restaurant, and there's like this old hag, really creepy looking lady. Obviously, it's one of the witches from the beginning, but like she's staring at her from across the restaurant, and she can't help but like notice her and look her in the eye. Ever since that night, she's been having these weird feelings. Like she thinks that maybe she's got like a curse on her or something, or this lady gave her the evil eye and she don't know what the fuck is wrong with her. And, I don't know. It just gets weirder and weirder. They go visit her husband's friends, and that they haven't seen in a while. They're kind of like eccentric, like the one lady's a Wiccan and her husband, and they decide to like play the Ouija board and, let's see what happens here. Except they do this thing like these candles represent like your life, and the one girl's candle kind of like burns out. Well, this kind of like turns into, that witch is definitely following her. But then it cuts to tell the story of the other witch that was from the beginning, like the younger one. And there's like a weird intertwining between these 2 witches. Like they're definitely, I don't want to tell you too much, but this movie was fan-fucking-tastic. I love witch movies. I absolutely love witch movies, and this is one of the better ones that I've seen recently. But yeah, Two Witches. I highly recommend it.
Two Witches came out in 2021, you said?
It's not streaming anywhere, but
not streaming anywhere.
You can buy it or rent it for $3.59 on Amazon right now, and it's well worth it.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds very familiar, but I love everything you said about it. Definitely want to check it out.
It's so creepy and like gory, like it's legit creepy. It's got such a cool like feeling to it, and the way the story is told is really interesting as well. I highly recommend this movie.
Very cool. You said 4.5, 5 stars?
Yeah.
Sweet. Yep. Definitely have to check that out ASAP. Chris, have you seen or heard of Two Witches?
I have not seen it. Kelly has been pitching it very hard to me over the past week. But I have a poster for it. You know, Fangoria always has like a free poster in it. One of the Fangorias I got recently had a Two Witches poster in it. But no, I haven't. Kelly has been trying to get me to watch it. We ended up watching something else the night we were going to watch it, which is what I'll be talking about next. So
Sweet. Well, on that note, what do you got to talk about next there, Ruthless Chris?
all right, excuse me. So Kelly and I were hanging out the other day. We put the projector up in the backyard, as we do. And her and I, this has been on our radar for a while, and it's something we've been wanting to check out, which is the remake of The Last Shift called Malum. Now, Malum is written and directed by the same person who made The Last Shift. He just didn't feel he had enough money to do it justice the first time around, so he got a lot more money this time around. He beefed the script up quite a bit, added a lot more special effects and a lot more stuff, and redubbed it Malum. And this came out 2023. It's pretty new. I think it only came out like 2 months ago. This is a superior film to The Last Shift. I do very much enjoy The Last Shift. However, I do think this version drags a little more in the front half, whereas The Last Shift had a little more better pacing. And they did add some more extra cool shit. But basically, you have a woman. Her father had dealt with these cultists. He was seen as a hero for a short amount of time for taking down this cult. And he ends up going crazy and shooting up the police precinct and then killing himself. Fast forward a few years, the daughter is now a police officer. It's the last night this precinct's open. Everything's moved over to this new precinct, but they need one cop just to sit there if anyone shows up or whatever to be like, go down the road to the new precinct, just like kind of forward them over there. And she wants to go because she wants to work there once at the precinct where her father used to work. Shit start getting spooky. They start getting a bunch of calls. All this cult shit starts happening. There's a very large pig involved. And then it really, really, like the first half of it, I was like, where'd all this extra money go to? Like, what the fuck? And then like the second half, when it really ramps up, you see where the money went. There's some pretty impressive creature effects in this. And a kind of hysterical one at the same time. Like the big baddie, that something happens with his face that made Kelly and I laugh pretty fucking hard for quite a while. And I don't think that was the intention, but it was still pretty good. There's like these murmuring witch characters that are in these like bloody wet bags, and they have like reflective eyeballs. That effect is very cool. The creature design in this is very cool. So a lot of the acting's a lot better. Some of it's worse. There was one cop in particular that was like a fantastic actor to where he like blew everyone away in any scene he was with. I really enjoyed it. I've seen it's getting pretty mixed reviews online. Like some people, it seems like it's a love it or hate it kind of thing. I loved it. I thought it was really good. It just kind of slogged at the first half. So because of the slog, I'll give it 4. Otherwise, I would have given it 4.5 or 5 if it really had the pacing of the first one. But Malum, I really, really enjoyed it. It's not streaming anywhere. We had to rent it, I believe, from Amazon. I think it was like $3.99.
Yeah, something like that.
But it was totally worth it. I really enjoyed it.
Fair enough. So Kelly, you saw this as well. What would you think? What kind of star rating would you give Malum?
I'd probably give it a 4. Probably give it a 4. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one too. I didn't realize it was a remake of The Last Shift until Chris told me. Like, I've been wanting to watch it after, I don't know, seeing a recommendation from somebody on Facebook or something, and I was like, huh, so I've been wanting to see it, but I did not realize it was a remake until Chris said something. It kind of had like remember Malignant sort of vibe to it? Did you get that from it? Yeah. It did. It had like a Malignant feel.
Like not as
comical
as not Malignant. As like purposely dated as like Malignant was really trying to take you back to the 80s. Mm-hmm. Like and not like hit you over the head like this is the 80s, but more in like tone and storytelling and like grandeur and stuff. Yeah. But this one did have a little bit of that, but you could tell it. I mean, it was very good filmmaking on a very small scale. That the concept made it so where you could have like a small cast and whatnot, because majority of it is just a few people in a police station, until things start getting out of hand. But It really dives into a level of madness that I think it's really hard to like capture on film properly for what they were trying to convey. And I think this is one of the few films that really did it. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I know that when I originally saw it being posted about and so forth, and I read the storyline, it was like, okay, this sounds exactly like Last Shift. And I can't remember the other movie. There was at least two movies that came out around the same time as The Last Shift that had a very similar storyline. And I was like, okay, well, we've seen the story. What is going to be different? And it's good to hear that it is actually by the same director, and it's just because he wanted to do his original story justice. So that's cool. Definitely something I've heard a lot of buzz about. And I remember when it had its limited theatrical release, I had people like inboxing me, "Hey, should I check this out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." But good to hear that it's a good movie. You both said 4 stars.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Very cool. Well, I'll have to check it out ASAP. In the meantime, I'm going to keep this train rolling, and I'm going to talk about the 1983 witch, demonic, crazy movie by Yuli Lommel, The Devonsville Terror. Now, I was originally curious about this film because Vinegar Syndrome, of course, put out a deluxe collector's edition of it. And I was like, should I buy it? Should I not? And then, of course, what happens all too often. I'm glad I didn't. Well, I kind of still would, but it's streaming now on Shudder/AMC Plus. It is a movie about a doctor who investigates a 300-year-old witch curse on New England town, Devonsville. And about the same time, 3 liberated, assertive women move into town, which angers the bigoted, male-dominated town fathers. One of the women is a reincarnation of the witch who was she was put to death. She was burned at the stake and proceeds to exact revenge on the town males. It's funny because, well, it's not funny at all, actually. It's a pretty humorless movie, but it's for a movie made in 1983, and I specifically, another reason I watched it because it was only an hour and 22 minutes long. I like a short movie. But this was really well done, and I didn't expect it to because the cover art on this and even the cover art on the Vinegar Syndrome and the posters you see everywhere is not enticing at all. It looks pretty bad. Even like the storyline sounds pretty basic, seems like something you've seen a million times. But if you were going to make a movie similar to or like a prequel maybe to The Lords of Salem with less of a rock and roll edge to it, it would be The Devonsville Terror. This is a really well done movie. Kept me interested. Sure, it's only an hour and 22 minutes, but sometimes you get distracted pretty easily even with a short movie. This was not the case. Yeah, if you were into witch movies, like I know you are, Kelly, I would definitely suggest this one. It's streaming on Shudder and AMC Plus. Yeah, and I give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It was a pleasant surprise because I wasn't expecting much from, the director isn't known for making the best movies, kind of trashy movies in general. And also, I'd never really heard of it. The art isn't that great. But the main doctor investigating the witch murders, the witch trials, is played by Donald Pleasance. So,
nice.
Yeah, that was
Dr.
a plus.
Loomis.
Yes, exactly. So that was one of the initial, oh, maybe this could be good. And luckily it was fantastic. 4 stars. Watch it on Shudder or AMC Plus. Have either of you heard of The Devonsville Terror?
I have not, but this sounds completely up my alley. Like you said, I am a big fan of witch movies, and I'm going to have to check this one out.
Never even heard of it.
All right. Well, if you get a chance, check it out on Shudder/AMC Plus. In the meantime, we got one last round of talking about what we've been watching before we skip on down to the Yellow Brick Road to Spoiler Town with the house that Jack built. What you got for us, Killer Kelly?
I stumbled across this one on Amazon Prime. It is a new series, and I ended up binging it within 2 days, like the entire first season. This is a horror comedy, kind of dark comedy. This is The Horror of Dolores Roach. Just came out, like literally, I think it just aired like last week or something. But it's basically a modern day retelling of Sweeney Todd. It follows Dolores Roach, although like the way they introduce it, it's somebody playing her as a stage play, like, you know, like Sweeney Todd has become like a stage play nowadays. So like it starts out, there's an actress playing Dolores Roach, and you know she's studied a lot of this woman's murders and shit, and now it's like a famous stage play or Broadway show, and you know she's getting ready to leave, and then the real Dolores Roach approaches her in her dressing room. She's like, "No, I don't like the way you're playing me. Let me tell you the real story." You know? So then she goes back and it tells the story about how Dolores went to jail. She got caught with some weed. Her boyfriend set her up. Her boyfriend at the time set her up with a bunch of weed to get caught selling it. And on her way out, she accidentally elbowed a cop. So she got 15, 16 years for selling weed and assault to a police officer for elbowing the cop. This is, I don't know, early 90s or something when she got popped and shit. So, I don't know, they were a lot more harsh on marijuana laws back then in New York. So she gets out of jail and she's looking for a boyfriend, you know? She realizes the world has changed a lot since she's gotten out. And the only place that's really still the same on the block in New York where she used to live is this little empanada shop. And like the boy that worked there is the same boy that always worked there, you know. His dad owned the store, and now he owns the store. His dad has passed and he lives underneath. He's always loved Dolores, so like he lets her move downstairs with him. Dolores wants to become a masseuse, and like I don't know, somehow she accidentally like kills somebody. And you know, the dude that she's staying with, I don't remember his name at the time, but the dude that she's staying with, you know, he gets the idea like, well, let's make empanadas out of him, you know, like the Sweeney Todd story instead of the meat pies and shit. So these two are working together. People keep accidentally dying. like I said, it's kind of a horror. It's a horror comedy for sure. It's kind of funny. It's a little like dramatic at times, but it's like I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like I said, I sat and fucking binged it in like 2 nights. You know, I give it a 3.5, 4. I'd like to see where they take the next season, but that's the basic telling of it. Instead of meat pies, they're fucking empanadas in modern day New York City, and it's a pretty fun fucking story. You guys
I love the idea of taking Sweeney Todd and making it more of a modernized version that people can relate to. That sounds like a very interesting idea, because I remember when I saw the title, I thought it was more of like a ghost story or a possession thing.
No.
So I'm glad that you talked about it, because now I'll definitely check it out. And that's on Amazon?
It is on Prime. Yep. It's a new Prime series. It's what was I gonna say? I was just gonna say something. I'm sorry, I just brain farted. And go on.
Oh, that happens, you know, totally understandable.
Like the thought went in and
Sure. The Horror of Dolores Roach. It's called, and you said you gave it 4 stars?
3.5, 4. Yeah.
3.5,
like
4?
I'd like to see where they take it next season. You know, it could change my rating, or it could make it, you know, make it better or worse. We'll see.
Well, you've definitely interested. You've piqued my interest, and I'll definitely be checking out The Horror of Dolores Roach. Have you seen this one, Chris?
I have not. She again has been pitching this to me, but I haven't checked it out yet. It's
a fun show. It's no musical. It's not a musical, so not like Sweeney.
The thing about like horror TV shows is like not a lot of them land with me. Like I'm kind of like I love horror movies, but not a lot of horror shows land with me. So I'm like kind of skeptical when I go to check them out.
This is a pretty easy one to binge. Like the episodes just kind of flow together. Like it went by real quick. I'm like, really? I just watched all that? Gotta wait a whole goddamn year now.
Sweet. I love the sound of it. Sounds like a good time. And I will definitely check that out. Ruthless Chris, what have you got for us, baby?
Yeah, excuse me.
Besides a yawn.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day. I watched this one. Yeah, like when you're younger. Some of the younger folks don't know the joy of this, but like when you're wandering around the video store, and there was like certain box art that you look at, and you're just like, that's awesome box art, but the movie can never like live up to it, so you never shell out the money to rent it. Well, now that I saw one of these on Tubi, I had to, fuck around and find out, as the kids say. So I watched 1988's Destroyer by Robert Kirk. You may remember this as being the one with the super jacked guy in the cover with electricity running through his arms, holding the jackhammer with a laser scope on it for some reason, and he has a skull face. Great cover. I don't know why you need a laser scope on a jackhammer, and it's not in the movie, but Terminator was out at the time. Everything was laser scopes. This one actually was kind of fun. And Anthony Perkins from Psycho had a very large role in it. But what you have here is this is actually akin to Shocker before they made Shocker. Like, it's not completely like Shocker, but you have this big muscle-bound guy that they're gonna execute, who is a murderer and rapist and child murderer and all that. They made him out to be like the worst guy ever. He looked like the bully from Revenge of the Nerds if you gave him a whole lot more steroids. Like, he is like a super jacked up dude. They take him to the electric chair, they fry him. He doesn't end up dying, but they don't know that because a prison riot breaks out. You don't see the prison riot. You just see like everyone run off like, oh my God, there's a riot. And then they shut the jail down afterwards because of the riot, apparently. So a few years go by. Anthony Perkins is a sleazy film director who is like very similar to like a Roger Corman. And he is doing a film in there called, I think, like Slutty Fox Vixens 5 or something. So he's making, like a real like sleazy piece of exploitation in the prison. And lo and behold, this dude's not dead. He's lurking in the shadows, living off rats, killing people with jackhammers.
Rats.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like picking them up and biting them like apples, like, now I have the sustenance for the day. That's my energy. Let's go. There's a lot of cool varieties of kills in this, like blowtorch stuff, the jackhammer stuff, glass things, and then palings and face meltings via electricity. This is basically like a slasher movie in a prison. Like, they're all stuck in the prison. He's slashing. They got nowhere to go. That's pretty much it. It's actually a lot of fun. You're going in like something like completely cheesy and very exploitation. Whole lot of boobs in this thing. A lot of gore. The main actor is kind of hilarious to watch because like he's got like no superpowers. He's got no costume. He's just like a big muscle dummy that fucks people up. With that being said, I actually really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. I gave it 3. Destroyer on Tubi.
Very cool. Kelly, have you seen Destroyer?
I have not.
All right. I have not either. I remember seeing the cover art and it had the opposite effect of that does not look cool at all. And I never rented it. I wish that I would have now because everything that Chris said sounds like a good time to me, and that cast sounds amazing. I was just looking at it briefly, and the killer is played by NFL star Lyle Elizondo. Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. The only other big movie I noticed that I'd seen him in was Ernest Goes to Camp, I think. But he's well known. Like when you see him, you're like, oh, I've seen him in a million TV shows and movies. Yeah, Ernest Goes to Camp. So that's exciting. but yeah, that cast looks really cool, and I like the story. So yeah, if that's on Tubi for free, you've got no reason not to check it out. Sounds like a good time. You said 3 stars?
I gave it 3.
Boom. Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna talk about one more movie, and then we're gonna get to the house that Jack built. Here we go. It is 2022's exploitation, faux sort of grindhousey homage to 80s sleaze. It is Hunt Club, not to be confused with The Hunt or The Hunt Club, but Hunt Club. This follows a group of male hunters who regularly lure women to their island with the chance to win $100,000 in a hunt, only to discover that they are hunted. But this time they mess with the wrong girls and must deal with the consequences. When I saw the trailer for this originally, I got really excited because it looked like a throwback to 80s sleaze and exploitation. Unfortunately, I'm sure is due to budget constraints. This is not a good movie for the most part. I did have to sort of lean into the parts I did like the cinematography is great. The lighting is amazing. The lighting reminded me a lot of like Italian giallo films. It's got that weird reds and pinks and blues and scenes. It does. Is a lot of that sleazy exploitation. I'm glad that it was directed by a woman, because if it wasn't, I would be like, wow, this is some really sort of like patriarchal bullshit. But hey, a woman made this film, so I'm guessing it's not. you know, um, it came across a little like Eaten Alive. You remember Eaten Alive or
Yes.
Gator Bait?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has that feeling, and also that male dominated women fighting back thing of like Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof, which was a faux grindhouse anyway. So that was there. But then of course, like, the cast is pretty cool. Mickey Rourke plays the main baddie. Mina Servani, however you pronounce her name. She's like the main girl trying to fight back against these horrible men. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting cast, and it should have definitely hit better with me. I think it's because like the fight scenes were so stiff, and the gore and blood was like really poorly done. It just didn't land the way it should have. If it had better fight scenes, I would have loved it, because like the fight scenes between the women fighting back to like crush the male dominance, it was just like, come on. that kick did not land at all, and I was being kind of picky maybe, but it was just bad fight scenes, bad blood and gore. I think I gave this one 2.5. But if you want to check it out, it's on Tubi for free, and it's on Prime Video included with Prime. Have you guys seen or heard of Hunt Club?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Maybe because, like you said, there's a few like hunt movies that start with like hunt, so maybe it might be something I passed, but I don't know.
I actually was going to watch it the other day, and then I noticed that you posted that you were watching it, and I was like, well, if he's going to cover it, I'll wait to see if he says it sucks or not. Mickey Rourke is definitely very hit or miss with me nowadays. His face after all the cosmetic surgery just looks like a melty ice cream cone now, which I think is very sad because he used to be a very, very handsome man. With that being said, I might not check it out after what you just said.
Yeah, unfortunately, I love a hunting humans movie, and this had so much potential for it. It's got a great trailer, but I would unfortunately have to say skip it. Unless you are a sucker for a hunting humans type film, and you just have to watch every one of them. But Hunt Club, I gave it 2.5 just for the lighting and cinematography, and it's streaming for free on Tubi and Prime Video. But with that being said, let's slide this ski gear straight into Spoiler Town. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
We'll take the lift up to the Black Diamonds of Spoiler Town and hit the slopes.
Exactly.
Middle of the
This is
summer
the
time.
triple Black Diamond tonight.
Blah 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 blah.
Of
Gang gang.
intensity.
Yes.
Slopes
We're gonna-
of Jack's house.
We're gonna talk about Lars von Trier's 2018 serial killer extraordinaire. Probably one of the best serial killer movies I've ever seen, The House That Jack Built.
And now for our feature presentation.
Goodness gracious gravy. This movie is crazy. You know, it's hard to say. Is this highbrow art? Is this lowbrow exploitation? Is it both? It doesn't matter because it's an amazing film to watch. People, I know that most people probably would have a hard time sitting through 2.5 hours of this film.
It is long, but
Yeah.
it went by pretty quick, actually. Like considering a lot like Bones and All did, because that was also a long movie. But this is also one of those movies where if you're paying attention to it, you're not going to notice how long it is. You know.
Right, exactly. I mean, once you get like enveloped by the high art aspect, you know, the story follows Jack, who is played by Matt Dillon. Jack is a highly intelligent serial killer. Over the course of 12 years, the film depicts the murders that really develop his inner madman. Wow. Yeah, it's so much more than that. You know what I mean? It just, I think it's a brilliant case study of what would make an atypical or typical serial killer, especially in American society. You know, it's got the white male in his 30s, 40s. You know, and then torturing animals. So if you're triggered by torturing animals, it shows him cutting the leg off a duckling.
Ah, that scene,
Not
dude.
like that.
I could not. Like, and then I'd peek and the duck was still flat. I'm like, ah! Like, I literally, like, put my head down. Like, no. It's still on the screen. No.
You know, as far as the runtime goes, I think it helps by the way it's actually told because they don't tell it atypically. It's broken down into 5 incidences, and it's like narrated by him in a conversation he's having with this guy named Verge, and he's breaking down these 5 incidents that reflect what he feels he's accomplished in life, and they're supposed to take place over these 12-year time span. So you also see him age within that. But I think it helps the runtime because you're not seeing like any of the minutia between what he does. Like it's like, here's a fucked up situation that I was doing. And then he might give some insight on his background or whatever as he's trying to explain what got him there, you know, as he was like when he started talking about like the wheat fields where like, you know, the people were cutting the not the wheat, the reeds down with the scythes. Or, you know, him trying to build the house, all that stuff. But I do think like the narrative of it is what kind of helps it move along because there's not really much fat, even though it's long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, like as far as like serial killer movies, it was told kind of in the way like Natural Born Killers, I guess. You know, you get that kind of vibe. Did you? That's kind of no. I didn't think about
Killers was supposed to be like an assault on the senses with all like its hard cuts and different styles.
Yeah, but this still had like the weird artsy shit in between with like the, you know, some of the cartoony shit, some of the illustratedness. I don't know. I can kind of see like as far as the storytelling and like the way the movie didn't seem as long as it is.
You know, as far as the stuff they had in between, I think it was almost the anti-Natural Born Killers, where Natural Born Killers was supposed to be very colorful and cerebral.
You're right. Okay.
The stuff would be like stuff of vintage, like people playing a piano, or you know, like winemakers, or you know, like Like it had this like almost anti,
You're
like, overload your senses with it,
absolutely, absolutely. I just seen like kind of similarities there, even though you're right. It would be like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm a big fan of how Lars von Trier created this film in that you are almost cheering for Matt Dillon, aka Jack, to kill these people off, even though they're not horrible people, but you almost want him to get away with it. Right from the beginning with his first victim, which I think it's also hilarious that nobody really got a name in this movie in the cast. Lady One.
Oh yeah, you're right.
His first victim is played by Uma Thurman, and she's super annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she starts like going, well, if you were a serial killer, you could do this. And I'm sure, this was supposed to be his first victim. I'm sure, by the time she shut the fuck up, he's ready. He was like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything you just said. Yeah, and then it progressed from there because
It did.
it was like, lady number 2, you let him into your house, and now he's gonna do what he's gonna do. And lady, it just went on, and it was completely misogynistic at points. But was that the character? Was that Lars? Because he has a tendency of doing that in his films, sort of. It's sort of very Italian of him, but he's German, and it's funny that it comes across that way. But I still thoroughly enjoyed it. What were you going to say, Chris?
I actually did want to point out none of the women characters had names. The men all did.
Interesting.
The ammo guy's name was Al. His best friend's name was SP. Yeah, and Verge, who is we all know, I mean, you guys figured out what the end was supposed to be, right? Dante's Inferno, and Verge was supposed to be Virgil.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're familiar with those works, it's a retelling of Dante's Inferno and his descent into hell. But I also think that there was more going on to it than that. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't skip to the end right now. We'll talk about that. I have multiple interpretations of the end of this movie.
Didn't they said the name of the girl Simple. He kept calling her Simple. At one point they did say her real name though. But that was the only girl that he actually admitted to like humanizing, or like, I actually kind of like this one, Yeah,
but then he ended up putting one of her tits on the front of the cop car, and the other tit he turned into a coin purse.
Purse, yeah. Very Ed Gein of him.
Yeah, I know that it was like a lot of the character aspects of Jack was a culmination of other real true crime or serial killers. So there was a little bit of Ed Gein. There was a little bit of he even says the Iceman during the movie. That's why he kept his victims in the walk-in freezer. Which everything about this movie I thought was genius from beginning to end.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his, of Lars von Trier's to begin with, but I know I shouldn't have, but several times during the rewatching this, I laughed. I laughed out loud several times. It was darkly humorous. And maybe because like Clockwork Orange is is one of my favorite films. So that second kill where, he poses as an insurance salesman / cop / reporter / I knew your husband, and he makes his way in the house, and then he makes her feel bad about making him wait outside, and then chokes her to death, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry," and then finished choking her to death. It borrows a lot from a lot of different spectacular films, and it's so smart and so well done.
It is.
It's funny that when this premiered at Cannes, a good amount of the audience walked out because before the film was over, was angry about it, raved on social media about how horrible it was. But then when the movie was finished, it received a 6-minute standing ovation. So, I mean, people, this is the type of film, and that's the type of film that Lars von Trier makes, is either you love it or you hate it. um how do you feel about how he the juxtaposition of his murderous tendencies and how he can twist it in his mind to be works of art? How do you feel about that?
Well,
I thought it was. Go on, Chris. I'm sorry.
I have a few things to say about all of this. One, you when you introed him, you said that he was very intelligent, which he is. But I also think he was a horrible serial killer. There are so many times he should have been caught. He was almost begging to get caught.
Yeah.
The dragging of the body, all the way back to his lair. He could have pulled off to the side of the road and threw it in the back of the truck and not let be. No, the rain came. The talking to the cop, the bumbling of even getting in there, and how bad he was at like talking to that woman. But I also think that might have been like him figuring his things out and getting better. But it was like he almost wanted to get caught, and I didn't think he was actually very good at what he did. I think the whole point of it, and he made a speech, it was like, scream all you want, no one wants to hear you, and that's like the whole point of it, to where he didn't even have to be great at this to get away with it, which I thought also was ironic that he picked the name Mr. Sophistication, because like that was the complete opposite of everything he was doing, But I'm sorry, what was your question? Now I'm ranting.
Just how do you feel about he thought about his murders as art, like he would pose the bodies in different positions, take photographs. He would like almost create sculptures sometimes, especially with the two little boys. How do you feel about this maniac, this serial killer, seeing his work, his murderous work, as art?
I think in the world of serial killers, that is a very common thing. Mostly because serial killers like to have trophies of what they do, remembrances, and his was mostly like through pictures. Some of it was artistic in its own way, but I mean, it was his twisted way of collecting trophies. And if he wasn't happy with the trophy, he would do something superbly stupid, like when he took the victim back and then killed someone on the way. So he had the frozen victim from his freezer, and he had a fresh corpse, and he's posing them together. And even when he was loading the bodies in and out, they made it a point to have a woman in the window just kind of moving around. And then right as he's bringing the bodies up, she just kind of turns around and doesn't notice what's going on, which I think that's a common theme in this movie is people don't want to see, And it even is a period piece. They don't tell you what year it is, but if I had to guess by the cars and the clothing and the styles, it's like I think it's like the 70s film that goes into the early 80s over the 12 years.
Yeah, I'd say late 70s, early 80s. That's exactly what I would have guessed too. Probably before like forensics and stuff was really big, because like you guys said, he was sloppy. There's definitely times that he should have been caught. But as far as like the artistry, I really like how the art that he was doing was different with each like dead body and stuff too. Like you said, how he laid the family out with all the crows, how he kind of did the taxidermy with the one kid, like, because he was inspired by some taxidermy. So he made that like fucked up face. I think I think it was really interesting. It's a really fucked up movie, but fuck, man, very enjoyable. Very well done.
Speaking, I think the family was incident number 3.
Yeah,
if I'm correct.
That's the hardest one to get through.
Yeah, that was rough, man.
For some reason, like the screams of the mother in that one was just like gut wrenching to me.
Mm-hmm.
I once again laughed.
You know what I found funny? Not to put you off course, so we'll get back there. Like, anytime they showed the pizzas in the freezer, like, because like the whole thing was like he bought this freezer and it was just full of these pizzas that he said were awful, and like he's throwing bodies on these stacks of pizzas. He's like, I have no idea what the fuck to do with all these pizzas. So there'd be like these grim scenes going on, and there's just stacks of these shitty pizzas. He has nothing, like nowhere to get rid of them with. For some reason, the pizzas made me laugh. But go on. I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's totally understandable because it's a darkly humorous film. It's got a very dark humor to it, and I think that if you don't find something like that funny, you're going to be one of those people who just walk out and you're going to be angry about this film. But going back to Incident 3, I thought it was very interesting that Grumpy and George, the two boys, were played by two brothers in real life. So they had that actual connection, so they didn't have to really play that up too much because it was already there. And I also think that in incident number 1, she keeps talking about serial killer, talking about him being a serial killer, when in fact that term wasn't introduced into the lexicon of American language until like the early 80s, and it's obvious that takes place like in the 70s. So because back then they still referred to people like Jack as a mass murderer. It wasn't until the 80s that they brought into existence the term serial killer. So I thought that was really interesting because I'm sure that Lars von Trier probably thought about every detail before he actually just pushed it out there. I think he wanted it to be sort of like hard to tell, and it takes like sort of like somebody examining every detail to pick up on something like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I went back and watched this again because I could probably watch this a million times. There's a lot of sort of meta sort of auto fictionalness to it, and you could see that Lars von Trier put a lot of himself into this film, along with bits and pieces of different real life serial killers. He's expressed that he did not compare himself at all to the character of Jack. But I feel like you cannot develop a character like Jack without having some sort of sick ideas in your head. Maybe that's me projecting, but I really loved the how dry Jack was, and especially like that scene. Maybe it's incident 4. I'm not sure, with Simple, where she runs out and he convinces the cop that she's drunk, and he takes her back inside. It's definitely a nod to the Jeffrey Dahmer incident where one of his victims ran outside into a cop car and he's like, save me, save me. And Jeffrey just convinced the cops that he was drunk or high and took him back inside.
Although he didn't convince him, he was just she's right. I am a serial killer. Right. And I'm going, and the cop's like, oh, whatever. Just take your friend back inside. This is ridiculous. Well,
not only that, the way they play it is, he comes up and he knocks on the hood real hard, and they give it like a second to breathe that scene. You expect him to be like, she's drunk, she's crazy, but he's like, everything she said's true. I've killed 60 people. Arrest me, and you're like, what the fuck? And that there is humor to that, even though what's going to happen if they don't, like there is a dark humor running through this thing. And the other thing I want to talk about is the last 20 minutes where this thing completely turns. Yeah. And it turns like the whole tone changes and it turns into a complete art house masterpiece in my eyes. The term they used, I forget what it was. Fuck. It was an old-timey Greek term, katabaesis. Katabaesis, so they had the thing where, he's by the car and you'd, like, you do an intro and you'd be holding a sign. Katabaesis is actually a Greek term for your descent into the city of the living dead. So in my eyes, how I saw that, and this is where it kind of turns into Dante's Inferno, where Verge is Virgil, and they even recreate some of the paintings from that, like him in the boat and all that. Well, I think that's from the Iliad, but I think that what really happened there, aside from his descent into hell, is also at one point they show him getting a little bit of humanity and like dropping a single tear for what he's done. Mm-hmm. And I think that back freezer that he wasn't able to get into is like him, like in his final moments, like unlocking his humanity, and that the police shot him, why he was about to go down that hole, or why he was locked in that back area, and that's like him going into hell now with Verge, you know. Then they showed like him like reliving everything he was doing and everything he was talking about, and he had that single tear, and I think that was like him connecting a little bit with his humanity before he descended into hell, you know. And then even then he tried to get out of it.
Yeah, I love that he's trying to get out of hell. He's like, oh, I could just climb the walls and make it out. And Verge is like, yeah, a lot of people have tried that, and no, it's never worked. It's not gonna work. You're like, oh, I'll try it. I'll make it work.
I'll take my chance. Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Homie. Nobody's done it, and you're not going to do it because you're no better than anybody else. You think you're smart, but you're not. And that's why a lot of serial killers do get caught, or when they eventually get caught, because they don't take care of themselves. It's pretty easy to get away with stuff like that if you just try. And a lot of people do not try hard enough.
Are you speaking from experience? No.
Yeah. I'm not talking about myself at all.
Shh.
Nobody. We're not talking about me.
It's pretty easy to get away with.
Pretty easy stuff. I have a bunch of guys sleeping in my basement. I could take them all out right now and nobody would care.
Build a house out of them.
Build a house and nestle inside. It's pretty cold in that It's pretty cold in that basement, wasn't it, Chris?
No, we were more worried about the clown room.
I'm gonna sleep in the clown room. No, you're not.
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna sleep in the clown room. No, you're not.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so this is streaming pretty much everywhere, right? I think. Is it
Hulu and Tubi, I believe. I will say
Hulu.
I watched it this time around on Tubi, and it is the edited version. The gore had been taken back quite a bit. Like, I'm pretty sure, if I remember the last time I watched it, he hits Uma Thurman a bunch of times with that jack, right?
I watched it on Hulu, and I only remember him hitting her once. But there was a lot of like boob and stuff. Maybe I don't know. I didn't see it before to compare how much gore they might have took out. So I don't know.
Anyway, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it looks like it's also streaming on AMC Plus / Shudder. I rewatched a physical copy of this from Shout Factory, Scream Factory as the director's cut. I really didn't notice too much of a difference between that and the original theatrical cut. So, yeah,
I noticed some stuff. Like especially the scene with the two kids. They cut before the headshot. To whereas the last time I saw it, it was quite a melon exploding at the back. Also, they cut before you saw the kid's leg come off when he shot the other one.
See.
Yeah, they go ahead.
The version I watched on Hulu must have been edited as well.
That's what I'm talking about. So this is the third time I've watched this. The other two, I've watched the complete uncut versions, and I noticed greatly that it had been scaled back, and I found it a lot less disturbing this time around. Like even the point where he was posing the kids at the picnic, they don't really show the kids at the picnic. They just show the pie going up to their lips. Whereas in the version I remember, like they were like on sticks and posed, and it showed them quite a bit with the mom. So yeah, just stuff like that. I noticed that the Tubi version.
Man, it was still that duck leg scene, man, that fucked me up. I think that one fucked me up more than anything else in this movie, dude. I think I audibly screamed. I was like, no. God.
Fair enough. Yeah, now that you brought that up, Chris, I do I do notice that the violence was a lot more graphic in the director's cut. And I read earlier that Lars von Trier prefers to show the violence as graphic as possible. He doesn't believe in people imagining things. It's like, no, this is gross. This is disgusting, and you're gonna see it in its entirety. So yeah, that would definitely lead to the director's cut. But I give it 5 stars. Well, how would you guys rate the house that Jack built?
I would give
Probably
it 5.
4.5, 5 as well. Yeah. You can rent the director's cut. I seen because I looked at that first when I was looking for this movie, but it's like $12.99 on Prime. So I watched the free one on Hulu.
Yeah, I would give it 5.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely one of the better serial killers, without being like a slasher movie, but definitely one of the better serial killer movies I've ever seen.
More
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah. Unique, it's artsy as shit. It keeps you. Yeah.
I definitely agree. This is definitely one of my favorite serial killer movies. It's right up there with Seven, Maniac, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. So if you like a serial killer movie and not necessarily a straight up slasher, you definitely have to check out The House that Jack Built. And you have no excuse because it is streaming on several different platforms and it's worth a watch. Highly recommended. 5 stars, 4.5 across the board. Check it out ASAP. And on that note, though, we're going to let you go for the night and we will see you next week. Ruthless Chris, what do you guys say for the people out there in real vile land?
Keep it sleazy.
Killer Kelly?
Keep it sleazy.
Oh my God.
Please.
Keep it
Those ticks. Ticks.
Keep it sleazy, ticks, ticks, ticks. And of course, as I usually say, keep it creepy, keep it spooky, and keep it real vile forever. God bless America and send nudes.